This video is for Homework and Mastery 2.5, the order of operations and applications involving integers. Order of operations. We're going to do this the same way that we did with whole numbers. We want to perform operations inside any grouping symbols, such as parentheses and brackets. Now then, if you see brackets, squiggly brackets, anything like that, don't panic. They're just grouping symbols. Use them just like you would parentheses. After we do the parentheses or grouping symbols, go to the exponents. After exponents, you do multiplication and division from left to right. This is extremely important. Remember to do it from left to right. And then you're going to do addition and subtraction from left to right. Look at this example. 12 minus 30 divided by 5 times negative 3 squared minus 2. Well, our first step is always grouping symbols. Is there anything to really do inside the parentheses? No. So the first thing that we do is actually this exponent, negative 3 squared. Negative 3 squared can be replaced with 9, because negative 3 squared becomes a positive 9. Just as I've done here, I've replaced this negative 3 squared with a 9. Then I proceed. I still can't do anything inside these grouping symbols. That just means to multiply there. I don't have any more exponents left. So I move to multiplication and division from left to right. Make sure you do it in order from left to right. So I look, and my first order of business is this 30 divided by 5. Extremely important. Make sure you do this first. When I take 30 divided by 5, I will get 6, as I've done here. Notice I did not do the 5 times 9, which seems natural to us, but that does not follow our order of operations. Make sure that you do it in order from left to right, because this division does come before this multiplication. Now then, again, looking from left to right, I do any multiplication or division that I see. My next step is this multiplication. 6 times 9, which will give me 54. The only thing I have left is addition, subtraction, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace things and look at it as 12 plus a negative 54 plus a negative 2. Makes it a little bit easier sometimes for me to look at where I'm looking at positive and negatives. If it doesn't make it easier for you, you can go ahead and work it from here, whichever is easier. My final answer will be a negative 44. Let's look at another problem. I have in grouping some brackets, negative 24 plus 8 times negative 3, all divided by 14 minus 20 in grouping symbols. What we need to do is we want to perform operations inside the parentheses and brackets first. So I want to perform everything up on the numerator first, and then everything in the denominator. So whenever I do that, and I look at this top part, I want to perform everything inside of there first. Well, I don't have any exponents, so I move to multiplication division, and I look at this multiplication. That is a positive 8 times a negative 3, which will give me a negative 24. So now I have a negative 24 plus a negative 24 divided by 14 minus 20. So a negative 24 plus a negative 24, they're both negative, so I'm going to add them and get a negative 48. My next step, I still have a set of parentheses, so I'm going to do 14 minus 20, which will give me a negative 6. My last step is to take negative 48 and divide it by a negative 6. Negative 48 divided by negative 6 will give me a positive 8. Let's look at another one. This is where I was telling you, don't panic whenever you see these symbols right here. They're just another form of parentheses or grouping brackets. Where we look here, we want to go to the very innermost grouping symbols first, which would be these parentheses. Well, I can't do anything inside the parentheses, so then I look at the brackets. So I'm going to do what's inside the bracket first, and do this 8 divided by a negative 2. 8 divided by negative 2 gives me a negative 4. I still have a set of grouping brackets here, and so I'm going to do negative 4 times negative 4, which will give me a positive 16. Now I do negative 48 divided by 16. This will give me a negative 3. Notice I did not do the division and multiplication in order from left to right in this case, and that is because it was divided up by grouping symbols. Remember, I have to do the parentheses first. Anything inside parentheses or grouping symbols I have to do first, and I always want to go to the innermost grouping symbol first. Let's look at this question. Ions are atoms or groups of atoms with positive or negative electrical charges. An oxide ion has an electrical charge of negative 2, while magnesium has a charge of positive 2. Find the total charge of 6 oxides and 5 magnesiums. Okay, well, I want the total charge, and I have 6 oxide ions, and I have 5 magnesium ions. What I have to look at is their charges individually. Oxide ions have a negative 2 charge. Magnesium ions have a positive 2 charge. So what I'm going to do is look at this right here. My total charge is equal to my number of oxide ions times their charge of the oxide ions plus the number of magnesium ions times the charge of the magnesium ions. I have 6 oxide ions and their charge is negative 2. Plus I have 5 magnesium ions and their charge is positive 2. 6 times negative 2 is negative 12. 5 times positive 2 is positive 10. Negative 12 plus 10 is negative 2. So be careful when you see problems like this. You really have to stop and think about these. You want to add the ions together, but you have to take their individual charges into account. So take their number of ions for each charge and multiply the number of ions times their charge before you combine them with addition first. Anytime that you are looking at order of operations again, make sure that you're remembering parentheses or grouping symbols, exponents, multiplication and division from left to right, addition subtraction from left to right. If you follow those 4 steps, you'll do well. Please ask us if you have any questions.